Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all for 1 week online induction refreshment program on behalf of AG Patil Institute of Technology. Uh, I request Dr. PJ Kulkarni sir to start the session.
Okay, I believe that there are no technical problems now, and my presentation is also seen by each one of you. My presentation is on performance analysis of machine learning algorithms. Is it all seen? Are there any problem?
No problem, sir. Please continue. Thank you.
So the title is Performance Analysis of Machine Learning Algorithms. Whole of my presentation, right from the morning, is more focused on making you to understand the abilities of the machine for learning, then for giving appropriate responses on learning, and also making you to understand how you can improve the learning of the machines. And for that matter, we must understand what way we should take up certain further steps to improve the performance of the machine. Are there any parameters? Are there any measures available for judging the performance of the machine learning? When machine is going to take charge of recommendation, estimations, predictions, and if we are going to accept it, I won't say that we are going to accept it so blindly, but if you develop a faith on the machine's ability of learning and recommending something to you, possibly then onward, you will believe, you will trust on the machine, and you will start accepting the recommendations of the machine, and you will act it appropriately in your day-to-day working. This is what it is aimed at. Slowly, slowly, we are going to get our aim fulfilled also. So ultimately, we are going to look to the machine as if it's not a machine, but is a human assistant to you, is a virtual human assistant to you. And most of the time, it is not only assistant to you, but it is carrying out a kind of a task for which human beings are considered not so competitive. Competitive part on the machine, competitive part on the human. I think these two need to be taken up in altogether a different way. This is not a focus of the today's discussion. But when I'm looking for the kind of the competitiveness of the machine to bring to you the kind of the intelligence as part of the human beings, the first and the foremost thing that comes in your mind would be how good the recommendations, how good the estimations, and how good these predictions are. And can we take up those for improving it further? Is there any chance by which the predictions will go wrong? Is there any chance by which the predictions are on borderline? Or is there any chance by which the predictions are altogether unturned? So all these are those issues which are all lingering upon how you measure the performance of the machine for its learnability.
I request everyone to please stay connected. Dr. Kulkarni will join the session within couple of minutes.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Please.
Am I audible? Audible and my
Yes, sir.
presentation are seen?
Yes, sir. You are audible and your presentation is also visible.
Okay. What happened in between? I don't know. But something
Yes.
happened, it seems.
No problem.
Okay.
It may be a technical
So,
issue. Let's continue.
so is that this introduction which I explained is known, or I need to repeat on this? I need to repeat on introduction, is it?
No, no, sir. We can
Okay.
proceed, sir.
Okay. I beg pardon for small issues on the technical side of it. What I said is like this: the classifier needs to be taken up for its appropriate decision, such that we look for whether there is any room for improvement, and if it is so, can we take up on which particular domain the improvement is to be called for, and all that it needs that it has to have some measurement of the performance of the classifier. So in that situation, I'm focusing on the part where how do we go for estimating the strategy? What way, if we take up our estimation would be acceptable, and if at all they are just bare acceptable, can we improve on its acceptance further? So my whole of the discussion will focus only on that part. As we noted that wrong classification as a result comes because of we do not have a proper estimation. We might not have appropriately selected the data. We might not have appropriately selected the process, or we might not have appropriately interpreted the result of the process. Are you getting me? What I said? I'll make my submission very clear to you once again. The wrong result of the classification or the machine learning would have following three different situations. Either the data selected is wrong, or the process selected is wrong, or the outcome that is coming from the machine learning is not appropriately interpreted. So these are the three ways by which the acceptance of the outcome of the machine would find some further extension for its development. Are you getting me? Are you all getting me? Let me get a response from your end. It should not happen that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So few of those flaws, some of those areas which are prone for bringing in the error is because of training data not well selected, or the data is not well selected, a classifier is not well selected, or even a test data is not selected. So there are many ways by which, these being the different processes of learning, every bit of that processing of learning would creep in with certain kind of error. So I'll focus on this a bit to start with, so that our understanding on how to improve on the learnability and how to measure the learnability will be evident to all of us. So what we said in the morning is like this, that given a data, let's say a data is 100%, and this is a well-known, well-trusted data. So we consider that a part of the data is a training data, a large part of this is a training data, a small part of this is a test data, and training data helps us to tune the learner, tune the machine learning appropriately, and whether this is so appropriate or not would be verified by a test data. Okay. Now, if we really take up trace data and the training data total in isolation, we might come in difficulty. I am bringing to your kind notice that if I consider training data and test data totally in isolation, we might come in difficulty. Since these are some of those areas prone for bringing in some noise from outside to the system, we need to be cautious. So what is that I'm proposing is as follows: that a training data and a test data, instead of selecting these to be in a two different silos, in two different compartments, can we take up this in a different strategy? Like there are different estimation strategies for that. Holdout method is one, random sampling is a second, cross validation is a third, bootstrap approach is a fourth. So these are the different approaches. What in general it says it like this, that supposing I am making use of a kind of a data which is 100%, out of the 100% in a k-fold cross validation, I select out of that 100 only few of the divisions. Let's say we have n tuples into it, okay, and we look for each of them to have 5 or 10 different segments of that. So supposing I am taking up a situation, I'll make it very simple for you, that a data is having 10 different segments, and 10 different segments amounts to 100%. Okay, so what I submit to you is as follows. So I consider that first segment to the ninth segment, will be used first for training, and the 10th segment will be used for testing. Okay, next, I'll I'll store this data. I'll store the learnability parameters from this data. So first I
Excuse
said
me,
that,
sir. Excuse me, sir. Sorry for disturbing you, sir. Please, sir, morning session, there only PPTs are shown. We are not seeing the slideshow.
right now you are not in a position to see the slideshow.
No, sir. No, sir. We
Is it?
just seeing the PPT.
Just a minute. Just a minute. I don't know why this is happening repeatedly.
Please share the entire screen and then we have to make the slideshow.
Yeah, I had done it like that only. I don't know. See whether it is all available.
Sir, kindly click on slideshow, sir.
Yeah. Is it working? Not working?
No, sir.
Not
Please
working?
share. No, no, sir. Please share the entire screen.
Is it okay, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Now it's visible.
Let me make up for the lost time.
Thank you.
What I said is like this, that data selection being more important in making estimation of the performance of the learner or a classifier, I bring to you a method which is called the k-fold cross-validation method. What I said is like this, that 0 to 99 or 1 to 100 are the data segments. We split this into 10. So this indicate that each of the segment will have a 10 elements into it. Likewise, 10 into 10, 100 elements would be there for 100% data. I make my submission like this, that first 9 segments, first 9 segments of 1 to 90 will be used for training purpose, and 91 to 100 will be used for testing purpose. Whatever result that I get out of this will be stored, and then I go for the next iteration. What the next iteration says it like this, that I'll skip the first segment of 1 to 10 and I'll go for 11 to 100. So 11 to 100 are again 9 different segments. So I'll make use of these 9 segments once again for training, whereas the first one which is skipped, like 1 to 10, will be used for testing. Are you with me, sir? Are you getting me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So what I did is like this, that I made a kind of a overlap between test and train samples. So first of all, I started with all first to 9 segments for training and the 10 segment for testing. Later on, what I did is that I skipped the first segment and I moved from second segment to the last segment, that is second segment to 10 segment for training, and the first segment is used for testing. Again, I store all these results. Then I go to the third. In the third part, what I do is the first 2 segments will be skipped, and from the third segment to the last segment and the first segment will be now used for training purpose, and the second segment which is skipped in between is now used for the testing purpose. Likewise, I will have the round robin fashion of selecting all those training and testing samples which were earlier taken up in isolation, but now they'll be now taken up with some kind of a overlap, and this improves the training as well as the testing ability of the machine. Am I clear? This is a very important k-fold cross validation method for making machine to learn in a better way. Okay. The accuracy estimation in that situation would be making us to define what is that we predicted correctly out of what is actual. So epsilon here is equal to P by N. So this indicates that if N is the number of instances with which a classifier is tested and P the number of correctly classified instances, then the accuracy is P by N. P are the correct, N are the total. Also, we can say that the error rate of misclassification, in fact, this we call as a misclassification rate, which is also denoted by epsilon bar, would be equal to 1 minus epsilon. So if you have accuracy estimation, 1 minus accuracy estimation is the misclassification estimation. Okay, so these are the basic level estimations. Of course, this is only a basic, we are going much ahead of it. Now, what it says is like this: true and predictive part. A true is the real, and a predictive is because of the machine. So this accuracy may be either considered true, which is absolute, or a predictor, which is optimistic because of our giving training to the machine. Okay. So predictive accuracy of a classifier is an accuracy estimation for a given test data which are mutually exclusive with the training data. But when we said a mutually exclusive, we did it like this, that it is a k-fold, and in each of the fold, though it is mutually exclusive, we are going to average out all those k different iterations by which we understand that this is not so exclusive. They are overlapping now. So the predictive accuracy for test set is epsilon, and if we test the classifier with a different set, it is likely that it might come up with a different kind of the estimations. But since we made it of a k-fold estimation, we come out of this difficulty to some extent. So with this, if I look for a performance estimation, whereupon the k-fold is used for training, testing like that, a predictive accuracy works fine. And this is more or less true when I get the classes are balanced. The meaning of classes balance, we have already taken up this in the afternoon session, saying that if at all a tree is constructed from the parent node, the decomposition of the tree on the left side and the right side usually will have the same number of nodes. If it is not so, it is imbalanced tree. So we look more or less for a balanced tree. In fact, data sets with imbalanced classes distributions are quite common in many real-life applications. And if this is so, we are likely to come across those situations which are not appropriately interpreted. I'm going to give a good example of it later on in this presentation only. So when the classifier classified a test data set with imbalanced class distributions, then the predictive accuracy on its own is not reliable. So I'll bring to you a great example and will indicate to you how wrongly we interpret the outcome of it. Let's say there are some situations where the given a data set is for a particular stock market, we have to classify them as a good and a worst. Suppose in the data set, out of 100 entries, 98 belong to good and only 2 belong to worst. Are you with me? This is the real data I'm saying, that out of 100, 98 belong to good and the 2 belong to only the worst class, which means that the data itself is highly imbalanced. Data itself is highly imbalanced. With this data set, if classifier predictive accuracy is worked out as a 0.98, so naturally 0.98 will be accuracy now, because out of 100, 98 belong to good and only 2 belong to worst. So I say that the predictive accuracy is 98. Is it so? We feel that we got a very good accuracy of 0.98, but the meaning is different. Here the sense is like this, that there is a chance that 2 worst stock markets may incorrectly be classified as a good. This says it like this: 2 which are worst stock markets may be incorrectly classified as the good. On the other hand, if the predictive accuracy is believed to be 0.02, 1 minus 0.98, then none of the stock markets may be classified as good. This is all happening because that we have selected a data set which is highly imbalanced. But this is a real situation. So how we come across? So how we come out of this? A performance estimation of a classifier indicates that when the classifier is classified and this is giving a certain predictive accuracy on its own and is believed to be not a reliable indicator of a classifier effectiveness, there is a room for improving its performance. This necessitates an alternative metrics to judge the classifier, which means that only the kind of the accuracy measure based on P by N is not accepted. P by N is not accepted for this reason. Before exploring them, we introduced the concept of a confusion matrix. So in order to come across this particular difficulty, P by N is not a good measure, as we just verified, we just demonstrated it. So we look for yet another, which is called as a confusion matrix. This is more uh, popular for performance analysis. So in this confusion matrix, all what we see along the rows are all real and true. All what we see along the rows are all true and real. But what all we see along the column is all what is machine predicted. This is all the machine judgment. So column wise, what you get is the machine judgment, and the row wise, what we get is the real. Say for example, a class which is a C1, which is a true class, if it is also indicated by the machine as a true, we call this as a true positive. If at all we get the input which is basically a true, but machine said that it is not true, it is, we call this as a false negative. False negative is that it is basically true, but machine declared is as a negative, and that negative is a false negative. Similarly, in a second row, when C2, they say it is something which is not of a negative, not a positive, which means that is a negative, and machine then said that, oh, this is positive. So we know that this is a negative, but machine said that this is a positive, this is a false positive. Means that it is basically a negative, but machine declared this as a positive, this is a false positive. So if it is a negative and if it machine declares as a negative, then it's a true negative. Are you with me? So these are the 4 instances. 4 instances will be also having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the confusion matrix. So we have to identify which instance is having the Hello, is it okay?
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, fine. I do not know whether I would be in a position to cope with all the time that lapse in between for this technical issue. I'll try to make it further.
Yes, sir. Continue.
I said it like this, that the issues of one which is a true is converted to true is accepted. One which is a positive is converted to positive accepted. But the one which is a positive was falsely converted to negative is not accepted. But this is a part for that positive. So this ultimately comes for all the decision for positive. Similarly, the decision for n indicating that the one which is a negative should be converted to negative. But the one which is a negative falsely converted to positive, it is not accepted. But this is a part of n also. So accordingly, np and nn are totally worked out, and np plus nn is the total number of those elements, is the total number of instances. So TP plus TN for that matter denote the number of correct classifications, whereas FP plus NN, FN denote the number of errors in the misclassification. So if I go back to this particular slide, this true positive and the true negative are the only those two entries that we need to have maximum, whereas the false positive and false negative are the two entries that we would like to have minimum all the time. If this is so, the classifier is working appropriately, is understood. Okay. So based on this only, our performance matrix is worked out. So please look at this confusion matrix. Don't go by the title of this matrix. The matrix title is confusion matrix. But if you understand it very correctly, there is no confusion. Let me bring to you the simplicity of understanding this. So let's assume, as I stated earlier, that we have two classes, a good class and a worst class. The good class, all those entries along the row are related to the actual input, good. The one which I look for this first row is for the good, second row is for the worst. If I look for the columns, now the good column which is shown over here is basically the one which is given by the machine. The worst is one which is given by the machine. So good at the input is given by the machine as a good is 6954. Good at the input is given by the machine as a worst is a 46. Similarly, worst at the input is given by the machine as a good wrongly is a 412, or the worst at the input is classified by the machine as worst is a 2588. As we stated earlier, these two diagonal elements must be as high as possible, whereas these two diagonal elements must be as small as possible. This is what we have already seen. But this should have been actually 0, but it never comes up like this. For the simple reason that this comes up because of the averaging effect. This comes because of not selecting properly the classification boundaries. Because we do not know exactly classification boundaries. Am I correct? So right in the morning we said in the regression, or in the afternoon session we have seen on the part of that what I say is a classification. If the boundaries are not appropriately selected, if the thresholds are not appropriately selected, if the machine learning is not appropriate, then we get across this situation. And that the reason that this cross entries are not usually considered to be 0. Okay, so if I look for all those things, so out of 7,000, which is considered to be good, 46 are worse. So 46 out of 7,000 are, which I meant to say that is not indicating correctly. So we will work out the percentage rate appropriately. In this situation also, we find that for the worst, we have a total of 3,000. Out of that, only what I see that 412 are one, which are indicating you that they are wrong. 2588 are correct. So 2588 divided by 3,000 will be the percentage of correctness. In this situation, 6954 divided by 7,000 is the percentage of correctness. Okay, these two together will give you the total number of samples of 10,000. Am I correct? Now, out of this 10,000, if I look for how many are correct are like this: 6954 are correct, plus 2588 are correct. So 6954 plus 2588 are those which are correct sample. So what is the percentage of this out of 10,000? So this is hardly 95.52%. Am I correct? I think I have given you the matrix for its understanding in a very crisp manner. So it is not a confusing way of describing it. I made it very clear to you. But still, if you find any difficulty, I am here to give a further exploration and the description of it. I believe I've done it well. Okay, so next. So the next part in that, supposing the data happens to be imbalanced. Let's say I'm making use of a data which is an imbalance. As stated in the afternoon session for the tree, from the parent node, if the right hand side and the left hand side of nodes are not equal in number, or if the edges are not equal in number, and if it gets skewed on one of them, this is called as the imbalanced data. And I selected one such imbalanced data, and I'm going to interpret the result of it. What it says is like this. Look, in this situation, the TP is here. What it says is like this, that 1, then 2, then that's all. That's all. So which clearly indicate that, suppose if I look for 1000 such entries, out of 1000 entries, hardly 30 entries belong to TP and 930 entries belong to TL. Okay, are you getting me? This clearly indicates that the data is imbalanced. So positive part into is hardly 30 and a negative part is 930. And under this situation, if I'm going to compute the accuracy, as stated with the earlier, TP plus TN is all what I see is a true divided by true plus false. So if I work out like this, I get 30 plus 930 divided by all that, which is 1000. So if I look this, I get accuracy as 0.96. So I get an impression, I get a kind of a understanding with this, that, oh, my accuracy is so good. Accuracy of 96%. So definitely this is good. But if I look for what is that this 96% is, see, this is all coming only because of the data is imbalanced. It is the nature of the data that has given you this kind of accuracy. It is to be interpreted with respect to the balance of the imbalanced data at the input. So 96% considered to be not a bad is in fact a bad. What it says here, our model is saying that one can predict the sick people 96%. If I put that data for understanding who are sick person, so this may indicate that one can predict this, that 96% of the given data correspond to a sick people. However, it is doing exactly opposite of this. It is predicting the people who will not get sick with 96%. This is the interpretation of it. This has to be the interpretation of it. Should we be measuring how many positive cases we can predict correctly to arrest the spread of the contagious viruses? Because those people who are so sick are so dangerous that they might spread the virus and they can make the other non-sick people as a sick people. So we must be more concerned with this part of it. But my result is giving me something 96%, which is getting interpreted in the wrong way. Oh, it may be considered because like this, that out of the correctly predicted cases, the cases of positive being so less, how many cases are positive here? Only 30 cases are positive. To check the reliability of our model, if we make use of this, this is where we come across the concept, which is called the dual concept, in which accuracy is not a great measure. Accuracy should not be considered as a great measure for the performance of the classifier. But instead of that, we must look forward for one more. And that is, one more is a set of what is called the precision and recall. So let's look at this precision and recall. The confusion matrix or a multi-class classifier could also be worked out. Because in reality, I'm not getting only 2 classes for the outcome. I might get multiple classes. But how do I construct then a matrix which is only spread across the 2? The simple idea for that is as follows. Supposing we have m classes. So confusion of n matrix is of size m by m, because we have m classes. So m classes will give me m by m matrix size. And in that situation, I would be having, let's say, if I look for that particular matrix, it is where if I get that there are 6 classes, 6 by 6 is my matrix size. So I have displayed this 6 by 6 matrix size. I know that all the diagonal elements need to have their values more and more as far as possible. All the other values of those diagonal element should be as small as possible, as less as possible. In that situation, supposing if I look for the C1, which is appropriately classified by the machine as also C1, this is 52. If the input is a C2 and machine is also appropriately classified this as a C2, the events are 50. Likewise, if I get it so, this is definitely something acceptable solution. But of the diagonal, the elements are not non-zero is not accepted. Let's say a C2 is known to me, but this is getting classified as a C1, and there are 50 such instances, which is not accepted. So what do we do? That constructing this 6 by 6 matrix into 2 by 2, a simple trick is as follows. A very simple trick. So entries, all those entries which are basically giving the misclassification, they are all summed up. So the one which is correct versus which is not so correct are grouped. So one which is correct is in one row, which is not all incorrect are total, and they are put in second row. So I get again a 2 rows here. Likewise, I can also construct here the columns. All those entries which are not basically giving me related to a particular class, they are all summed up because they are not belonging to a particular. So they are all summed up, and they come up something saying that they are not accepted. So what I bring to you in that situation is that as I decided all the row entries to be summed up and to be taken up as not appropriate, likewise all the entries along the column are not being appropriate, they are summed up and they are clubbed here. So I create from a 6 by 6 matrix a matrix which is only a 2 by 2. So this is a 2 by 2 matrix. So this becomes my 2 by 2 matrix. So it is 52 by 20, 52 and 21. However, when is that the 52 comes up and when is that 21 comes up here? The 52 comes up only because of I have this true as a 52, and 21 comes because of 15 plus 5 plus 0 plus 0 plus 1. So this is 21. So 52 is a one entry, 21 is a second entry. Am I clear? So I created a large size matrix to come down to a 2 by 2 matrix, and this becomes easy for me to handle. So this is where this confusion matrix of a 2 by 2 will be taken further for defining precision and recall. So let's look at how that precision and the recall values are computed. What it says is like this. We are to compute two parameters called the precision and recall. Prior to that, we need to get the true positive rate, the false positive rate, false negative rate, and so on and so forth. So let's look at this true positive rate. What is true positive rate said? The true positive divided the total positive. True positive divided by the total positive. Right? Total positive? Total positives are those which are basically true positive plus falsely declared as a negative. They are basically positive. No? So TP plus Fn is basically positive. So TP divided by TP plus Fn is my true positive rate. Am I clear? Accordingly, I compute this FPR, which is a false positive rate. Similarly, I compute this false negative rate. Similarly, I compute this true negative rate. So I have with me those 4 different rates. Okay, false positive rate, true positive rate, false negative rate, true negative rate. So this is the basic in computing the specificity, then the recall, precision, sensitivity. So I repeat, these are responsible for computing specificity, sensitivity, precision, and recall. So we'll make use of this further. We get from this a positive predictive value, which is basically all true positives divided by true positives plus false positives. So this is where this is called as a precision. So we worked out from this TP divided TP plus FP as a precision. Of course, the precision is one such parameter, but precision is all indicating that given certain call as a positive, how many are turned into positive. So this is the positive prediction value. Similarly, there could be negative prediction value. So I look for that. So being these are two different, I might come across some difficulty. Which one to accept? So there is a solution, and the solution is that instead of going in for selecting each one of these in isolation, we put tests in a group, and thereupon we come across a score called the F1 score. So F1 score is a common score because of this precision and one more term called the recall. So usual nomenclature for this is that 2 times R dot P divided by R plus P. R stands for recall, P stands for precision. So F1 is a kind of a parameter which summarizes the performance due to precision and recall. This is commonly used in defining the performance of a classifier. So F1 score is a common. Okay, so in that situation, it is likely that this F1 represents the harmonic mean. Of course, we have not defined the harmonic mean of it, but please understand this F1 is a combined representation of recall and a precision. We may skip this part for the paucity of time, but this is basically focusing on defining the two parameters. Precision is TP divided TP plus FP, and the recall is basically TP divided by TP plus FN. So out of whatever we disclose as a positive, this comes up because of true positive and a false negative. False negative comes because of this is basically a positive part of it. Okay, so these two are the important parameters. Now I'm going to bring to a very interesting phenomenon by using those precision and recall parameters further, and this gives you good interpretation of the results coming out of this classifications accuracy. So once again, when I visit this accuracy comes because of TP plus TN divided by P plus N. So 2 divided by all is accuracy. Okay, so this accuracy is equivalent to saying that when everything is all one, W1 is 1, W2 is 1, W3 is 1, W4 is 1. In this situation, FW is going to be 1. Is it so? Now again, this is where we make some kind of interpretations which is not well accepted. Please look at this. So when this also we had discussed earlier, let me skip this for the paucity of time. So we look for this predictive accuracy to be worked out in terms of sensitivity and the specificity. Sensitivity is the parameter which is P divided by P plus N, and specificity is the parameter which is basically taking you to understand what does TP by N. So we look for this sensitivity as a TP by P, and specificity is TN by N. So we look for these parameters to work out appropriately, which will give me the value of accuracy, which we stated earlier is not a good sign of measuring the performance. But in terms of sensitivity and the specificity, this gets worked out like this. Next. The parameters then is like this. Let's take up the extreme situations. Case 1 is a situation which is called the perfect classifier. As we stated earlier, these two diagonal elements are only non-zero, whereas these two diagonal elements are 0, which is an ideal situation. This we call is a perfect classifier. And for the perfect classifier, these are those estimations. TPR is 1, FPR is 0, precision is 1, accuracy is 1, F1 score is also 1. Okay, so these are ready-made computations for your kind reference. If I look for the second case is a worst classifier in the sense that now these diagonal elements which should have been all non-zero have become 0, whereas the one which should have been 0 have become non-zero. So this is a worst classifier. This is a worst classifier. For the worst classifier also, we have worked out these parameters, which is TPR is 0, FPR is 1, precision is 0. Precision is 0. Look for the previous diagram. In the previous diagram, precision was 1. Now the precision is 0. And if we look for the accuracy is also 0. F1 score is not applicable for here because here recall precision is also 0. Okay. So if we look for a third situation whereupon this is ultra liberal classifier. It says it like this that the one which is always a positive, the classifier always predicts a class which is positive, but the false negative and the true negatives are also 0 here. In that situation, what it says is that the one which is basically a negative is classified as a positive. What it means is like this, that the one which should have been displayed as a negative, please look at this. So this is basically a negative. So instead of displaying this as a negative, this is falsely displayed as a positive. Oh, this is, which means that there are nothing which are displayed towards the category called a negative. Everything is a positive. Everything is positive. This is liberal. Though there is a mistake, this is not declared as a mistake. This is also accepted. This is a liberal. This also is one extreme case. Look for another case. The fourth case is saying that is an ultra conservative. Though input is a good, it declares that this is not good. In the third case, what is that we said that though it was not good, it was declared as a good. Whereas the fourth case is said that the fourth case is exactly opposite of that. And in that it says it's like this, that though the input is a positive, it declares all the time it is negative. Always negative. So these are the four extreme situations. Are we there to make use of all the four extreme situations in real life? In real life, the first situation is very much wanted, but we don't get it only because of the wrong selection of the process, wrong selection of the threshold, or maybe it is a wrong interpretation of the result, as we stated earlier. Okay, taking this forward. So the predictive accuracy, whereupon a TPR and APR is worked out, is great in the part that they decide that how do we take it for easy understanding for defining the performance of the classifier. Okay, we defined this TPR earlier. So let me skip this part for the paucity of time. So we go to an important issue, which is called the ROC. These are basically ROC curves, for which the full form is receiver operating characteristic curve. This has been derived from some applications in the radar images. We wanted to, in fact, detect on a radar image the image of a friend or an image of a foe as far as the target is concerned. So if the foe target is accepted as a friend target, we make a disastrous mistake. Such a thing is not to be accepted. Okay, in that situation, in that operating characteristic on which we decide a certain threshold and we classify matters a lot. So this has been derived as a ROC curve from the analysis of radar images. So we'll not be going for these radar images as such. We'll be only looking for the cases where one which is a positive declared as a negative and the one which is negative as a declared as a positive. Of course, not in a full part, but in a part of it. So we look for this as a ROC plot, region where we are focusing on the receiver operating characteristic, which are all accepted versus which is not accepted. So I'll give you a brief description on this, but the brief description is also crisp and clear enough, I believe so. So I'll take you to that description appropriately. So let's look at this. I look for plotting those ROC, receiver operating characteristics, such that on x-axis I plot APR, false positive rate, whereas on the y-axis I plot true positive rate. So in that situation, let's take up those four quadrants. One quadrant for C0, 0, B1, 0, D1, 1, and A0, 1. See what it says? What it says is like this. If I look for this A0, 1, which is a true positive rate, you know what it says? It says it like this, that in A0, 1 says that a false positive rate is 0, whereas the true positive rate is 1. I think this is 100% accepted. False positive is 0 and true positive is 1. So A0, 1 is something which is highly accepted. This is a perfect classifier. If I take up the opposite of this, say for example, B1, 0. What B1, 0 says that? B1, 0 says that the false positive rate is 1, whereas the true positive rate is 0. 100% this is not accepted. Okay, and as regards to these two, we come across this C0, 0 or D1, 1. In two of the situation, the TPR and the APR values are identical. TPR is equal to, I want to say that when I look for this TPR and APR to be taken up for joining anything which relates to these two are identical will give me a diagonal line. So this is the particular diagonal line where TPR equals APR. Is it good? Oh, we'll now comment on this. We'll comment in detail on this. So let's interpret the result of this. So if I get something which is called the TPR equal to 1, APR equal to 0. TPR1, APR1, this is a perfect classifier. There are no false results. In B, as I stated, TPR is 0, APR is 1. This is a worst classifier. We don't expect such a classifier to be employed anywhere. If TPR is 0, APR is 0, which is this situation, I get a model which predicts every instance to be a negative class. If I look for TPR equal to 1, APR equal to 1, I get this situation, which as I stated is an ultra-liberal class. Is this okay, or this also is not okay? So what is okay for all those things? Only one part which is okay is this A0, 1. But are we going to get it? Oh, in reality, we are not going to get it. I said about the reasons for this. Now, what is happening? Let's look at this. If I plot this curve, if I get all those points which are above the diagonal of this particular line, this is where I can consider this is something accepted. This is most accepted, whereas what I see on this is accepted marginally. Okay, but anything below this diagonal is not at all accepted. Anything below this is not accepted. So this is simple meaning of it. I written up all those things in a comment part of it, but for the paucity of time, I'll wrap up of saying that anything which comes on upper part of the diagonal is accepted. Anything below this is not at all accepted. This part is the worst. This part is the best. Okay, so this is a simple interpretation of it. What it really means further. What it says is that for the real, I mean to say for the one which we designed as a classifier, we might get the points on this side. Definitely some such points are not accepted, so such a classifier is thrown. This is the particular classifier which is accepted. So supposing if I am looking for this classifier, which is y giving me 0.2, 0.7. Okay, if I get it like this, which indicate that TPR here is a 0.7, whereas the APR is 0.2. Okay, so this is the meaning of this y 0.2, 0.7. This is near to this a 0.1. Am I correct? Because this is the one which is the best. This is near to it. So this is a perfect, whereas this is near perfect. We wanted to define what is a perfect and near perfect. So we got it here. So this particular point is near perfect. We might accept this based on these points. Let's say based on the point over here, or based on the point over here, this point is the one which is near perfect. This is a perfect, whereas this is near perfect. This is more perfect. This is another more perfect. I think here we are in a position to really characterize the performance of the classifier in terms of certain parameter, and the certain parameter into it is defining this in terms of TPR and APR. Am I clear? This is a very common most tool. This is a very common most platform on which the performance of a classifier is appropriately adjusted. If it is not within a certain limit, naturally we have to redesign the classifier and see to it that the point is near to the perfect. If it is not near to the perfect, but if it is acceptable, oh, you can freeze that kind of a design. But it must be acceptable. That's the second part of it. If it is not the best, it must be acceptable. Is the second. Okay. So I will return all those points over here in detail. So I may skip that part. At the end, I'll bring to you the important part of defining that near perfect or the perfect. So a point on this ROC defined by APR, TPR will indicate the radius of this with respect to the perfect. The perfect is this one, whereas this is near perfect. So we would like to define, we would like to measure the distance, and this distance is a measure of the classification accuracy of the classifier. Okay, and this is given up like this. So if I call this to be a delta, so if I get this APR, this is the point where I'm looking for this as the APR, and this is the point which is a TPR. Okay, so if I know this point, 1 minus TPR is this. Okay, 1 minus TPR is this, and this is APR. So APR and 1 minus TPR will decide the C. Am I correct? So this is simple Pythagoras theorem, which has given me the value of C, and this is the measure of the classification accuracy. Oh, that's a great part. I think all what we said, which could be so complicated, is made now so easy. Okay. So this is where we would like to make use of this particular platform for defining, adjudging the performance of a classifier. Here, I have made great use of the references. I would like to bring to your kind notice that this reference, Data Mining Concepts and Techniques, third edition, I think this is so good that it will clarify most of your doubts, if at all they are lingering in your mind. So please refer to this further. This is another one, Introduction to Data Mining. And this also, though this is an old document, 2014 document, is still considered to be a very good document. So if you are unable to get this, if you are unable to digest this document, please refer to this document. This is a very good document. I'm fond of using these references. As I said in the afternoon that I worked in the machine learning area in an exhaustive way, and many of my students work into this area and produce a sizable, a significant research work into it. If you feel that I could be of great help to you, definitely for any of the queries in this domain, if you fire it to me, I'll be in a position to bring to your notice some of the solutions available at my end. Okay, so this is how I would like to wrap up my third presentation. I hope that all of the three presentations, the morning presentation, the afternoon presentation, so also the last presentation, which I'm just concluding right now, are put in front of you in a very good way, which I mean to say is well understood by each one of you. Still, if you find any difficulties, any questions to me, I am available. And if you are unable to put it right now, please write to me on my email. As far as possible, I'll try to answer to these queries over 2 days' time. And I wish all of you all the best for your research journey in this machine learning, which I said is tightly coupled to IoT. Okay, so this is how I bring to you saying that a big thank you to all of you for kind and patient listening to all of my three presentations. If you have any difficulty, please put it in front of me. Thank you very much once again.
I request the participants to put your doubts in the chat box, or else you can unmute and ask your doubts. I think sir has explained all the concepts very clearly. So thank you
My
so
mail
much,
ID
sir.
is also called for. In the chat box, I could see that my mail ID is requested. Okay. In fact, on my side, I given my ID in the chat box only. Can I rewrite it? I'll rewrite in the chat box. So she requested for my email. So this is my email. Okay. So I sent my email address to you. Okay. Other than that, any other query? Okay. Let me take an opportunity to thank all the members on the organizing side. I would like to especially thank the HOD ENTC department, the madam who were constantly in touch with me for my preparations, for making it presentable at the session today, and allowing me to make use of your platform for making my presentations available to all of you. I'm really thankful to all these members in the organizing, because I believe that they have taken a painstaking effort for providing these links to all these speakers. This is being run for last 4 days, I believe so. So it's a painstaking really effort they have taken up, and they have successfully done it to my knowledge. So I wish all of them a great success for them. And if at all they happen to be a great point of contact for all the all the participants, please see to it that if they get across some of those difficulties to be put in front of me, they need to work as a point of a contact. Please divert all those queries to me. I'll try to handle those appropriately at my level. So I'm also thankful to all the participants. I could see there are more than 23 participants right now. So I'm thankful to all of them. Few of the participants might be on a remote places also, or there could be multiple participants on a one machine. So to all of them, I once again say from my side all the best. And for any of the query, I would be available to them. Thank you. Thank you all once again.
Thank you so much, sir, for guiding us and spending your valuable time from your busy schedule. I thank you for briefly explaining all the concepts in linear and non-linear regression in machine learning and its applications along with the case studies. Then you have very nicely explained all the decision tree classifiers and its applications. And now we have enjoyed the session performance analysis of machine learning algorithms. Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of AGPIT Solapur, I thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
I thank all the participants for the patient listening. We'll meet
Thank
again
you.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
We'll meet tomorrow at 10:30 in the morning for the session on stress management by Mr. Anish Sahasrabuddhe, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you.